My dad kicked me out of the fashion brand we built together because I gained 15 pounds. "You're not marketable anymore," he said coldly. My cousin laughed and said, "Maybe try modeling plus size now." 2 weeks later, a major brand offered me my own collection. I never imagined things would unfold the way they did. Growing up, I always had this picture-perfect image of my family. My dad, Thomas, was the ultimate businessman, smart, driven, and known in the fashion world for his eye for design. My mom, Sarah, was always there to support him and me. I grew up in a house filled with luxurious fabrics and expensive shoes, and as a child, I assumed everyone had a life like ours. My dad always made it clear that he valued hard work above all else. And as I got older, I started to realize that the fashion industry wasn't as glamorous as I thought it was, but it was still exciting. When I graduated college, I didn't want to join the family business at first. I wanted to figure things out on my own, but after a few years of working different jobs, I decided to dive into the fashion world with Dad. I joined his company full-time when I was 23, working in marketing and social media. I was good at it, and together, we made things work. He was the creative genius behind the designs, and I made sure the world knew about them. But in the past year, things started to change. It was small at first, just little comments from Dad about my appearance. At first, I thought he was just concerned about my health. I had gained a few pounds, but nothing that seemed extreme. Still, I noticed his glances whenever I walked into the room, his occasional pauses when he would talk about the brand's public image. Then, one afternoon, things took a turn. It was a busy day at the office. I was in the middle of finalizing a deal with an influencer when my dad walked into the conference room, his face stone cold. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, his eyes scanning the room before landing on me. "Grace," he said, his voice firm. "We need to talk. Now." I had no idea what this was about. We were in the middle of something important, and I thought maybe it was an urgent business issue. But as I excused myself from the meeting and followed him into his office, a knot began to form in my stomach. The door clicked behind me, and I took a seat in front of his desk. He didn't sit right away. Instead, he stood by the window, looking out over the city. "I've been thinking a lot about the future of the company," he began, his voice low. "About where we're headed, about the brand's direction." I nodded, trying to keep calm. I knew we had been talking about rebranding lately, about making the company appeal to a younger audience. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. "You're not marketable anymore, Grace," he said, his voice matter of fact, almost as though he was reading from a script. "Not in the way you used to be." My heart sank. I blinked, not understanding. "What do you mean?" He turned around to face me, his expression unreadable. "You've gained weight. And we both know that's a problem. Our brand is about image, and right now, you don't fit that image anymore. I need someone who represents the brand's vision, and right now, that's not you." I felt the blood rush from my face. I wanted to scream, to ask how he could say something like that, but the words wouldn't come. This was my dad. The man who had taught me that confidence and hard work mattered more than appearance. And now, he was telling me I wasn't good enough because of the way I looked. "I can lose the weight," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can work on it. Please, I just need a little time. I'll get back to where I was." But Dad shook his head. "It's not just about losing weight. It's about how the brand is perceived. It's about the market we're targeting. You don't fit that market anymore." I wanted to argue, to beg him to reconsider, but he was already making up his mind. "I've already lined up someone to take over your role. I don't have a place for you here anymore. It's better for both of us." I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, and I felt like the ground was slipping away beneath me. I wasn't just losing my job. I was losing my connection to everything I had worked for, everything I had helped build with him. Before I could say anything more, the door opened, and Rachel, my cousin, stepped inside, her face twisted into a smirk. Maybe you should consider modeling for plus-size brands now, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I stood there, stunned. It was like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe what was happening. Rachel had always been competitive with me, but this was beyond anything I'd ever imagined. I wanted to fight back, but I couldn't. I turned around and walked out of the office, my mind racing, my hands shaking. I spent the next few days in a daze. I didn't know what to do. I felt humiliated, rejected by the person who was supposed to have my back. I stayed at home, scrolling through social media, watching as my dad's brand continued to thrive without me. The thought of starting over seemed impossible. But then, something strange happened. I started to get messages on Instagram. At first, I thought it was just spam, but as I looked closer, I realized they were from photographers, influencers, and brands. It was like the universe was trying to tell me something. One of the messages was from a major fashion company. They had seen my photos on social media and loved my vibe. They wanted to meet with me to discuss the possibility of me creating my own collection. They were looking for someone to represent body positivity, diversity, and inclusivity. And they thought I was the perfect fit. I couldn't believe it. After everything that had happened, here was an opportunity that was better than anything I had imagined. It felt surreal. I still couldn't shake off the sting of my dad's rejection, but now I had a chance to prove him wrong. The meeting with the fashion brand was everything I could have hoped for. They loved my ideas, they appreciated the work I'd done in fashion marketing, and they wanted me to be the face of their new collection. It wasn't just about my size, it was about my confidence, my passion for fashion, and my ability to connect with people who believed in what I stood for. As the weeks went by, I poured my heart into designing the collection. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to show everyone that I could succeed on my own terms, without needing anyone's approval. But then, something unexpected happened. I heard from a mutual friend that my dad had heard about the brand offering me a collection. Apparently, he wasn't happy about it. He'd tried to reach out to me, but I hadn't answered his calls. Part of me wanted to pick up the phone and tell him what had happened, how I had made it without him, but another part of me felt like I needed to keep my distance. It was strange, though. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt free. And I realized that maybe this was the best thing that could have happened. Maybe it was time to start defining my own success. I didn't need to rely on my dad's approval or his brand. I was enough on my own. I'll leave it here for now. Let me know what you think. The days that followed the offer from the fashion brand were a whirlwind of excitement and anxiety. I was consumed by the sheer magnitude of what had happened. I'd always wanted to be part of the fashion world, but never once had I imagined that I would create something entirely my own, separate from everything I had worked on with my father. It felt empowering, but also like a betrayal. At first, I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that I had been kicked out of my own family business. It wasn't just a job to me, it was my identity, the thing I had been a part of since I was old enough to understand what fashion meant. But now, I was being offered something that was just as significant, maybe even more. My own collection, my own brand, my own voice. I threw myself into my new project. I started researching the kind of designs I wanted to showcase. I wanted my line to represent more than just a collection of clothes. I wanted it to stand for inclusivity, for all bodies, for confidence. I didn't want it to be a plus-size line, per se. I wanted it to be a celebration of women, of all sizes, backgrounds, and stories. I made a decision right then and there that I wouldn't just target one specific group. I wanted to empower everyone who wore my clothes. But with every step forward, there was a voice in my head that reminded me of what my father had said. "You're not marketable anymore." Those words haunted me. I would look in the mirror and see a person who was still confident, still strong, still capable, but I also saw someone who had been rejected by the very person who was supposed to be my biggest supporter. It made me question everything. Had I really lost my marketability just because I wasn't the same size I used to be? I began to realize something important, though. My father's definition of marketable was limited. It was based on an outdated ideal of beauty, one that only fit a narrow mold. But the world was changing, and the fashion industry was changing with it. What I thought was a setback was, in fact, an opportunity to build something that was truer to who I was, and to who I wanted to be. 2 weeks after receiving the offer from the brand, I was sitting in a small cafe with my best friend, Sophia, who had been a constant source of support throughout everything. Sophia had been my sounding board, the one person who listened to all my frustrations and reassured me that I was still worthy, still capable. "So, how are you feeling about the collection?" she asked, sipping her coffee. "I'm feeling overwhelmed," I said, laughing nervously. "I mean, this is huge, but it feels so different from what I've been used to. It's all mine now, no dad, no company, no expectations." "You're going to crush it," she said, her smile wide. "You've been preparing for this your whole life. Don't second-guess yourself now." I wanted to believe her, truly. But a small part of me kept questioning if this was the right thing, if I was capable of pulling it off without my dad's guidance. I hadn't spoken to him since that day in the office, and part of me was still angry, hurt by his cold dismissal. But at the same time, I wanted to prove to him, and to myself, that I didn't need him to succeed. "You know," Sophia added, "this whole thing could be a blessing in disguise. You don't have to play by anyone else's rules anymore. You get to build something that represents who you are, not what they think you should be." Her words stuck with me. I hadn't fully realized it yet, but Sophia was right. This was my chance to build something on my own terms. I didn't have to live in the shadow of my father's brand anymore. I could create something authentic, something I could be proud of, something that was truly mine. The next few weeks flew by as I dove headfirst into the project. The fashion brand had set up meetings with several designers and marketing teams to help bring my vision to life. I spent hours brainstorming, sketching designs, and working on the branding. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted the world to see me as more than just the daughter of a successful businessman. I wanted them to see me for who I really was, someone who had a voice, a purpose, and a vision of her own. But as the days went on, I couldn't help but wonder if my dad was keeping track of what I was doing. Had he heard about the collection? Had he seen the press releases? I hadn't gotten any messages from him. Part of me wanted to reach out, to show him what I was capable of, but another part of me was scared. What if he didn't approve? What if he thought I was failing without him? I had built so much of my self-worth around his approval, around the company we built together. The thought of losing that, of losing him, was a constant ache I couldn't ignore. One evening, as I was sitting at my desk, scrolling through some concept art for the collection, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom. "Grace, your dad called. He wants to talk to you. I think you should consider hearing him out." I stared at the message for a long time, unsure of what to do. I hadn't spoken to him in weeks. What was there left to say? I knew I wasn't ready to forgive him for what he had done, kicking me out of the company, dismissing me like I was nothing, but part of me still longed for his approval, still wanted to make him proud. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the phone screen. But before I could respond, a second message popped up. It was from my dad. "Grace, I know things have been tense between us. I'm sorry for what happened. I should have handled things differently. Can we talk?" I stared at the message, the knot in my chest tightening. He had never apologized before, not like this. It was clear that he was trying to reach out, to make amends. But was I ready to open that door again? Was I ready to let him back into my life? I didn't respond right away. Instead, I put my phone down and walked outside. It was a beautiful evening, and the cool air helped clear my head. I couldn't keep running away from the reality that I was going to have to face my father sooner or later. Whether I liked it or not, he was a part of my past, and he would always have an impact on my future. But the question remained, what kind of future did I want? Did I want to keep living in his shadow, waiting for his validation? Or did I want to carve out a future on my own terms, no longer bound by his expectations? The choice was mine now, and for the first time, I realized that I didn't need his approval to move forward. As the days went on, I found myself torn. The brand was moving forward, my designs were beginning to take shape, and I was gaining more confidence with every step. Yet, the part of me that still craved my father's approval couldn't fully let go. I had grown up with the constant pressure to be perfect, to uphold the family name, and to live up to his vision. It was hard to break free from that. But I knew I couldn't keep waiting for him to change his mind about me. If I was going to succeed, I had to do it without him. One evening, a week after I'd received his messages, I found myself staring at my phone again. The messages from my dad were still there, unread. I knew it was time to make a decision. Did I reach out to him and try to salvage what little relationship we had left, or did I move forward and leave the past behind? I took a deep breath and typed out a reply. I think it's time we talked, but not about what happened. I'm doing my own thing now, Dad. I've got my own collection with a major brand. I'm moving forward, and I don't need your approval to do it. If you want to be part of my life, it's on my terms now. I'm no longer the person you think I am. I hesitated before hitting send. It wasn't a message full of anger or vitriol, but it was a message that firmly set boundaries. I wasn't going to beg for his approval anymore. I was done. I hit send. The days after that message were quiet. My phone didn't ring, and my inbox remained empty. Part of me expected my father to respond, maybe with an apology, or at least an explanation. But nothing came. And as the silence stretched on, I realized something important: I didn't need a response. My life had already moved on. Meanwhile, the fashion brand I was working with was pushing my collection hard. The launch date was drawing closer, and the buzz was growing. The press loved the concept. My designs were bold, colorful, and most importantly, inclusive. Women of all sizes were going to be able to wear my pieces, and that made me feel like I was finally doing something that mattered. The company had given me full creative control, and it felt like I had built something from the ground up, starting with nothing but an idea and a vision. The week before my collection launched, I received a call from the PR team. They were thrilled with the media coverage and wanted to ramp things up. We had a few interviews lined up, and they were starting to receive inquiries from major fashion outlets. They wanted to highlight the backstory behind the collection, how I had come from a family-owned fashion empire, and how I was now launching my own brand after facing personal and professional setbacks. They wanted to make it a part of the narrative. It felt surreal. As the interviews and articles started pouring in, I began to realize that this was my moment, not just to succeed, but to make a statement. It wasn't just about the clothes anymore. It was about taking control of my own narrative and proving to the world that I was more than what others thought I could be. But there was one thing left I needed to do. One final act that would close the chapter of my old life and allow me to fully embrace the new. The night before the launch, I decided to visit my father. It wasn't about seeking approval anymore, it was about closure. I wasn't going to let him hold any more power over me, even if that power was simply emotional. I needed him to see that I was doing just fine on my own. I walked up to the front door of the house, my heart pounding a little faster than usual. It felt like a strange mixture of finality and freedom. My mom answered the door, surprised to see me. "Grace? What's going on?" she asked, her face full of concern. "I'm here to talk to Dad," I replied. She hesitated but then stepped aside. I walked into the house, the familiar smell of old wood and leather filling my nose. It felt like stepping back into the past, but also like I was walking toward the future. My father was sitting in his favorite chair, sipping a glass of whiskey, the same way he always had. "Grace," he said, his voice more measured than it had been in our last conversation. "I didn't think you'd come." I didn't sit. I stood there, my posture firm, my resolve steady. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened," I began. "I'm not angry anymore, Dad. But I'm not going to let you dictate my life. I'm launching my own collection. I don't need your approval to be successful. His face softened, and for the first time I saw a glimmer of something resembling regret. He set the glass down on the table. "I've been a fool, Grace," he said, his voice quieter now. "I should have never made you feel like you weren't enough. I've always wanted what's best for you, but I let my own insecurities blind me. I see that now." I didn't know how to respond. A part of me wanted to tell him that it was too little, too late. But another part of me understood that people can change, even if it's too late to make amends for everything. "I don't need you to approve of me anymore," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I built something on my own. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of who I've become. You might not have seen it, but I've always been capable. I didn't need your permission to succeed." There was a long pause, and then he nodded slowly, as if absorbing everything I had said. For the first time, I didn't feel like the daughter in his shadow. I felt like an equal, someone who had earned her place in the world. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice heavy with sincerity. "You were right all along. I didn't see it. But I see it now." I nodded once, giving him a small smile. "It's okay, Dad. I'll always love you, but I'm done being defined by your expectations. This is my life now." I turned and walked out the door, not looking back. The day of my collection launch arrived, and the response was overwhelming. The press went wild, social media blew up with excitement, and women from all over the world started sharing their support. I had done it. I had created something that mattered. I never did hear from my father again after that night. But strangely, it didn't bother me. I had already moved on. The success of my collection, the confidence I had in my own skin, and the fact that I had built something on my own terms were more than enough. As I stood in front of the camera for one of my final interviews, a reporter asked me about my journey, about the challenges I had faced. "I've learned that success doesn't come from anyone else's approval," I said, my voice steady. "It comes from within. You have to believe in yourself, even when no one else does. Especially when no one else does." I smiled, feeling proud of the woman I had become, the woman who had been kicked down, but had risen even stronger.